oh my God, is this who we are? Is this what we represent? Telling somebody to kiss it, lick it, suck it, stick it, F you, you're a monkey.
All right, welcome to another episode of the show. We are back. If you guys are new to this show is called Polar Opposites because we agree, we disagree, like last week's episode. It's something new every single week, and it's always fun. We talk about a variety of topics dealing with pop culture, entertainment, music, and politics. But we really do appreciate you guys listening to the show. This is going to be another great week and another great episode. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to tell your meemaws and peepaws. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, hit that subscribe button, rate the show, leave a review. It's been a minute since we got a review. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling a little bit guilty because you haven't left a review, I'm talking exactly to you because you be listening every week, but you haven't left a review. Yeah, we love it. We love to see it. Dante, how are you?
Doing well on this Memorial Day. That's when we're recording on Monday, Memorial Day. So everybody remember the reason for the holiday. You know, I had to ask a veteran because sometimes I get them mixed up between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. So Memorial Day is for the military personnel who lost their lives during their time in service, and then Veterans Day is for all the the living military personnel. So just in case anybody was ever wondering, maybe I'm just an idiot on my own and didn't know, but just in case anybody was wondering, that's the differences between the two holidays there. But how are you doing?
I'm doing good. You learn something new every single day. It's very true. No matter how old you get, you always learn something new, and I learned something new. Or maybe it wasn't new, but it was like refreshed in my mind based on what you said regarding Veterans Day and Memorial Day. I think some of our listeners are more informed now, so that's good that we know the difference now.
We try to spread the good word.
We love that. I'm feeling good. This week we have a lot to get through, so I'm going to cut short the banter a little bit and go right into listener questions. So, if you guys are new to the show, we have a link in the description of every single episode where you guys can chime in, click the link, and ask us anything. So we have a segment devoted to you guys where we answer your questions and give some thoughts to your concerns, I guess. But before we actually address the question, one of our listeners, Justin, wrote in, and his question is a little bit long, so we will not address it on this week's episode. But since I'm teasing it now, we will talk about it on next week's episode. I just wanted to let you know specifically because I have seen it. We will read it, and that goes for everybody as well. Just because we haven't addressed your question yet doesn't mean that we're never going to bring it up on the show. We've seen it, and it just takes a while to get through these questions because there's a lot. So we want to make sure that each question gets a very good answer from both me and Dante. So our first question, or our only question for this week that we're going to address is, do you think there's something to the idea that people that defend sexual assault do that because they're unsure whether they've crossed the lines in the past as well? Ooh, what do you think about that, Dante?
That's a great question, first of all. It's a heavy thought process and heavy topic, but I think it's a decent theory on the subject. I always come on this show and tell you not everything's black and white, not everything's A equals B, whatever, cliche that you want to use, right? I'm not going to say that everybody who defends sexual assault, you know what? I just had a brain fart there. Listen, you shouldn't be defending sexual assault, right? If you're sexually assaulting somebody, I don't know where you could step in and defend it. But I don't think that everybody that does it is because they're not sure if they've ever crossed the line in the past. There are probably a lot of people who, over the past 5 years, the more understanding that we've gained, and especially with speaking out, have questioned some of the things that they have done in the past and are wondering if they cross the line. But me personally, I don't think that would lead them to defend an abuser. It should make them want to learn more and be better so they don't repeat the same mistakes. I just can't put myself in the mindset of defending an abuser. That's just me. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think that this is a very interesting question. Like I always say, you guys are so smart and you guys ask us very thought-provoking questions like this one. My thoughts on it, I think there's some truth to it. I think that people that feel the need to defend sexual assault or always, want to defend the person in question, I think it's very possible that they too might have done something in the past and maybe there were blurred lines and they didn't know if they maybe committed assault or not. So they always try and defend that guy because they don't know if they too can be the next victim of, being accused or whatnot. So I think that there's some truth to that. Does that apply to everybody? No. But my question would be, why would anybody want to defend sexual assault? I think it's equal on both parts. Women fear, being abused, and men fear being accused. So some men approach it like, oh, this woman, how do we know she's telling the truth? How do we know that she's not lying on this guy? And in this culture right now, we have the idea of believe all women. Where I see it, I think that we should support all women, give them the support to feel comfortable to come forward and look at things as the evidence comes to you. That way you're making a fair decision. And when all the evidence comes out, the person that, committed the offense will be held accountable for that. I think that's the way I see it when it comes to that. But I do think there's truth to what this person is saying because a hit dog is going to holler. That's why a lot of people hate cancel culture, because with cancel culture, people go into somebody's past and dig up something problematic. We know in life that none of us are perfect. All of us are learning and growing, and a lot of us have made mistakes. I don't know if it's to the point of being canceled, but it's definitely to the point of somebody bringing it to somebody's attention and like, hey, what did you mean by this? Why did you do this? Why did you say this? So because we're not all perfect, because we all have an equal chance of somebody digging into our past, it makes us feel defensive. It's like, am I going to be next? So it's almost this idea of, am I going to be next? Am I going to be the next victim of being accused? Am I going to be the next victim of cancel culture? So I think that's where it comes from. But I do think there's truth to what you just said.
And I don't want this to turn into a whole cancel culture discussion because we've talked about this, right? But where do you draw a line? So let's say somebody is accused of something bad, and then it's somebody's journalistic duty to go research this person's past to see if there is other transgressions in their past that, build a case that, hey, this is a bad person. They've done this one time, and here's the other times we found out that we did this. Now, there's people going out there that are just targeting people that they don't like. Well, let me find something that this guy said when he was 14 years old and things of that nature. Like a player gets drafted, the rival team's like, oh, we don't like this guy. Let's go look at his Twitter from when he was in high school. To me, that stuff is whack, but I don't want to get too much off the topic of what this listener question was about. I agree that I that theory makes sense, and I can see people doing that, out of their own selfish self-preservation. Hey, I'm going to defend this because I may have done this in the past too, or I'm not sure if I've ever crossed the line. So let me just err on the side of caution here, because when they start coming for people, I don't want them to be able to come for me. So if I stand for this now, it won't allow me to fall later. This is why I said not everything's black and white, because I've heard more times than I can count that I've heard people say, oh, well, this person, they don't support gay people or homosexuality because they're secretly gay. And I don't think that's true about every person that doesn't support it. I think some people just are ignorant, but I don't think that they are homosexual themselves or a closeted homosexual and hate themselves for it. I think some people are just ignorant, or some people are just like, hey, it doesn't make sense to me, so I don't like it, but I've heard that so many times. I've seen that so many times on Twitter, like, oh, somebody said something negative about Lil Nas X in that Montero video or whatever the video is called. You really just gay yourself because that's why you didn't want to see that. No, I don't think so. I think that's a weird conclusion to draw.
I don't think this person said all people that feel the need to defend sexual assault are sexual offenders themselves. She said, is there truth to the fact that people that defend them are unsure whether they've crossed the line or not? And yes, it can be possible. It's probably not, applicable to everybody. With what you said with homophobia, I also believe that it's not everybody that's very homophobic that is gay themselves. That's just not true. Nothing's ever 100% with sexual assault, and nothing is ever 100% with the situation you brought up. So Good question. Really good question. Yeah, I always love when you guys make us think, and we definitely were thinking on this topic. So thank you for that. So moving right along, let us get into Off My Chest.
Justin's gotta get it off his chest. Dante has got to get it off his chest. Justin and Dante gotta get it off their chest.
Thank you, Julia. Ooh, love hearing that. So this week in Off My Chest, Dante, would you like to go first this week? What do you need to get off your chest this week?
So I'm going to let you handle it because from the outline, I see that we were going to talk about the same thing.
Okay.
So you can get it off your chest for both of us.
So we've been seeing in the NBA that there have been fans that are doing a little bit too much. So I saw Tristan Thompson, a fan, had dumped some popcorn on him, and then Tristan Thompson got really upset and was charging him, and there was 10 people holding him back, and people were upset. They wanted to find the person that felt brave enough to throw popcorn on the opposing team. That's ridiculous. Keep your hands to yourself. Then today I saw that, I think last night, somebody threw a bottle of water at Kyrie Irving, and I was like, what are these fans doing? Last year, everybody knows the NBA did not have any fans because the NBA was in a bubble to protect the players and the fans. This year, now that we have a vaccine, they've opened it up, and now fans are back, and now they're about to snatch away the fans again because fans are out of line.
When you feel disrespected as a person, man or woman, and someone calls you out your name or does something like that, it doesn't make you feel good. And then when you react, and we had times in history where people have reacted and gone in the crowd, then we're wrong. And we need to be civilized, and we need to keep our calm, and we need to keep our cool, and then it's reflected on us. So, like I said, just want to keep it upfront and truthful. And it's just, unacceptable for that stuff to be happening. But we move on.
Keep your hands to yourself, because if you were on the street, you wouldn't ever dare throw a water bottle at a tall, huge NBA player that can probably beat you up. You would never do that. You would never throw popcorn at that person. So why do you feel that it's okay to do the same just because, you're up in the rafters and that person might not be able to get to you because there's 10 people holding them back, or they might even get in trouble for, laying hands on you? If you do not want to fight, do not start anything. I don't get it. And anybody that does that, I think they should be banned for a long time. I don't know how long they should be banned, but they should be fined. They should be banned from the arena. That's unacceptable. And I'm tired of seeing that because we always hold players to this high moral standard. And then when we see something like this, if they choose to retaliate, then they're the bad guy. And I don't think that's fair. And I'm not condoning violence, but I think that that's just life. Don't hit somebody and expect not to be hit back. If you don't want to be hit at all, keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And so here's what I'll add on to it. So it was last week in Philadelphia, actually, Russell Westbrook got hurt and was walking back to the locker room, and a fan at the Wells Fargo Center dumped popcorn on him as he was leaving the court. He had to be restrained.
As they were leading him off the floor, and fans come out and cheer, come out and boo, yell all you want. We encourage that. This is just plain stupidity. Somebody pouring some popcorn, and any athlete, being Westbrook or whomever, they are pumped with their adrenaline. He's probably feeling bad. His team may be en route here to losing this game too. Just a stupid thing to do.
Like you said yesterday, Kyrie Irving got a water bottle thrown at him. Emmanuel Quickly, who plays for the New York Knicks, had a bottle thrown at him. And then also Atlanta Hawks star player Trae Young got spit on. These aren't the first times that we've seen fans get out of pocket with players, right? Everybody remembers the malice at the Palace. The Pistons and Pacers were playing, and a fan threw soda at Ron Artest, and the players charged the stands and were fighting the patrons, the people that paid their money to watch a game, and it ended up turning into this fight, right? Vernon Maxwell, some fan yelled something to him about his stillborn baby, and he went in the stands and beat up this fan, which he should have. Marcus Smart, when he was at Oklahoma State, a fan called him the N-word, went into the stands, right? Just because you pay your money to be there doesn't mean that you can disrespect people and treat them without dignity, like they're animals, like it's a zoo. It's just there for your entertainment, like you're throwing peanuts at the elephants or whatever they do at zoos. I'm not really into animals like that, so I haven't been at a zoo since the last time I was forced to be at one. But my larger point on that is that there's power in numbers, right? If people feel more comfort around other people that they think have their back, no people don't like to act alone. So if everybody was at the Garden screaming, fuck Kyrie, more people are going to join in. It becomes a group activity. If one person was screaming it and nobody else did it, it was just silence, they'd feel like a dickhead and they'd probably leave. So we have to stop encouraging this behavior from fans. There's a way to cheer on your team and not cheer for the opposing team, being respectful and careful. The fan who threw a bottle at Kyrie just got charged with a felony today, I saw on Bleacher Report. and the fan who threw the popcorn on Russell Westbrook in Philadelphia has been banned from all Wells Fargo events.
I think that's ridiculous. A felony for throwing something at someone, I don't think that offense fits the crime. I don't agree with that at all.
I think the ban from a stadium, regardless of what sports team is playing there, is completely appropriate.
I agree. If you cannot conduct yourself as a reasonable adult, you don't deserve to be there. Somebody else will gladly take your seat. So I think that's the right punishment. But a felony, I think, is a bit much. Like, felony, it'd be one thing if he attacked somebody with a knife or something, but a felony, I think, is a little bit ridiculous. But maybe you have to step that far in order to deter people from acting stupid, because we don't want another Malice in the Palace. We really don't. It was not a good look for the NBA, and it just wasn't. So I guess to deter that from happening, they're going to start with huge, fines and huge punishments for people that decide to get out of hand. So if you want a felony, go ahead, throw some stuff and see what happens.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess we can head into In the News. So Donté, what's our first news story?
All right, we're going to get politics out the way early this episode and just give y'all a quick rundown. Last week we mentioned that the Senate was voting on a House resolution to have a bipartisan commission to investigate the events of January 6th, the insurrection. The Senate, which would need a filibuster-proof majority to approve this, which is 60 votes. Right now, the Senate's tied 50-50. Kamala Harris would be the tiebreaker if it was just a simple majority vote. But that's your civics lesson for today, whatever. The Senate did not reach the 60 votes needed to create this bipartisan commission to investigate the insurrection on January 6th. 5 Republican senators crossed over to Democratic lines and voted for it, but 35 Republican senators said, no, we don't want to investigate this. I wish that they kept that same energy and they had the same fervor that they did when 9/11 happened or when Benghazi happened. We want to investigate terrorism, just not when our base are the ones committing the acts of terror. That's kind of the hill that they choose to die on repeatedly. So that's cool too.
Mm-hmm. And then what's our next story?
Oh, one of the rising stars of the Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene, was caught on the news. Not caught because she willingly did it. She said it. She compared wearing a mask to the Holocaust. She talked about how wearing a mask is just like how Jewish people had to wear Yellow Star of David pins. And she talked about how they were picked up in the middle of the night on trains and sent to internment camps and killed. And she compared wearing masks to that on national TV. She's a gem.
We can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to say, honestly. I think her words speak for itself, but I guess it's just good that y'all know what your elected officials are up to. So, there's that. So this week, this is kind of a sports episode. I don't know what's happening, but our tennis fave, Naomi Osaka, earlier in the week, we heard that she did not want to do after-game press conferences because it affects her mental health, and she feels like some reporters can be insensitive with the way they ask questions, especially when your adrenaline is up. Sometimes when you lose a match, they ask you, really stupid questions, and you don't want to get upset, and it's very hard. So she said that she wasn't going to be, giving press conferences, and this is a no-no because players can get fined for choosing not to talk to the press. It's a big deal. It's, a part of the game. And as the biggest, tennis star in the world, her choosing not to do that in a way can set an example. And it's just, controversy because anytime a big player does something like that, it's gonna, have some ripple effects. So I'll read a little bit of the story so y'all get more context, and then we will give our thoughts. The week-long confrontation between Naomi Osaka, the second-ranked woman in tennis, and leaders of the sport's 4 Grand Slam tournaments turned bitter on Monday when Ms. Osaka withdrew from the French Open, citing concerns for her mental health. The move was a dramatic turn in the high-stakes standoff between the most powerful officials in tennis and Ms. Osaka. The 23-year-old is not only the world's highest-paid female athlete, but a generational star who has quickly become the most magnetic figure in tennis. And she said, "I think now the best thing for the tournament, the other players, and my well-being is that I withdraw so that everyone can get back to focusing on tennis going on in Paris. So this is the first time in professional tennis that a star as significant as Osaka has not suffered a physical injury and has walked away from the middle of an event such as the French Open. And this is a big deal. So some of her fellow players came out and said that they, support her, but they disagree with her stance because they believe that, doing post-game interviews is a part of the game and it's part of what you sign up for. So it's a tradition that should stay because in a way the players help the media and it's in a way symbiotic relationship that should stay. So Naomi, took a stand against it and, it caused some controversy. So it's interesting now that she's withdrawing and now, advertisers and everybody's probably mad because they don't get to see, the number 2 ranked player participate in the French Open. Because people were expecting her to do well because she's been on a hot streak in terms of winning at these last few Grand Slams. So Dante, what do you think about her stance and her withdrawing from the French Open?
First of all, I applaud her stance to do what she thinks is the best thing that she can do for her mental health, because at the end of the day, that's more important than anything. So if that's what she had to do to protect her peace, then good for her. I'm going to always support somebody who does what they need to do to protect their peace. In terms of how you mentioned the symbiotic relationship between the press and the athletes, I wish that the press was more evolved and more civil when Serena Williams was going through this 10, 15, 20 years ago, how they treated her and the cartoons that were drawn about her and the nasty comments about her. And the press needs to do better when it comes to dealing with these athletes. Athleticism, especially playing professional sports, this is your livelihood. You've worked your whole life to get here, and they ask them stupid questions or questions that might not have anything to do with the game, whatever the case may be. They need to be better. But what you said is, how you said about how some of her contemporaries came out in support of her but disagreed with the way that she handled it, withdrawing from a tournament, not due to physical injury, but due to mental health. Talking to the press, just like in the NBA, I mean, I don't know the rules of tennis, right? So I'm not going to come in here and talk like I'm some expert on how their deals are set up in relation to the media. But I know in the NFL and the NBA, it's required that you go out there and speak to the press, right? It's a part of the job. Now, for her, if she viewed this as, okay, you're right, it is a part of the job, well, I'm taking this one off then. I respect it. You were within the rules of whatever, the organization said, and you did what you felt was right. So I applaud that. But I do think that athletes do have some sort of responsibility to speak to the press, even if you're out there, if you give them the same answer every single time, that's what the job details, at least in North American professional sports. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts. Because
Marshawn Lynch, a running back in the NFL, famously, I remember at the Super Bowl, he's not a fan of speaking to the press because we know how the press can manipulate people, make people sound a certain way, cause distractions. So in turn, he was like, I'm going to answer every single question the same. And he answered every question by saying, I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I'm here so I won't get fined. I'm here so I won't get fined. I'm here so I won't get fined. I'm here so I won't get fined. I'm here so I won't get fined. I'm just here so I won't get fined.
And, it worked because he gave his, interview. So what are you going to fine him for? Because players do get fined for not talking to the press. So Naomi Osaka, since she didn't talk to the press after her round 1 victory, she was fined $15,000. And then I think the French Open had come out and said that, hey, if you continue, we can levy heavier fines and sanctions against you. And I think Naomi was like, honestly, I really don't need this. I don't want to be a distraction. I did this for my mental health and wasn't trying to be selfish or take a stance just to cause some headlines. I think it's in my best interest to withdraw. That way y'all can go on with your match and my mental health is protected. I think that that's great. I applaud her for taking a position and taking a stance because it's hard. I don't know. I feel like the media maybe needs to be reformed and challenged. Sometimes we need to take a look at things that have been accepted for too long and see if we can improve it. I know she tweeted that something to the effect of people hate change and change makes people upset. And I think that that's true. And I think that the media has to reflect and think about asking better questions instead of trying to provoke the players into getting upset. That way you have another headline, because they do that. They ask them certain questions that they know will irritate celebrate them. That way they can get more headlines, and it's annoying. And I couldn't imagine being a professional athlete, being tired, having to sit there for 15 minutes and answer the same questions over and over again, and then people trying to antagonize me and ask a certain question, that way they can get a rise out of me. It's very frustrating. I agree that it's part of the game and it's part of what she signed up for, but I feel like if she's taking the stance and saying that she's not going to continue, doing the press conferences, she's accepting the penalty for that. She made like $50+ million last year, so she has $15,000 in the bank to pay for each, press conference that she misses. So I don't know why they threatened her and said that we're going to further punish you when she already, was punished. You know what I mean? Because they want to send a message that this is not okay, because they don't want other players to take her example and do the same.
My thoughts on it, you mentioned this, but it's like, think about she is the highest paid female athlete in the world. These Grand Slams earn lots of money, especially for all the sponsorships she has and all of that stuff. Think about how passionate she is about not tennis. I mean, she devoted her life to it. These people don't get to these places by accident, right? Like, there's a lot of sacrifice and hard work that makes you get to the level that she's at. But two, about how passionate she is about how she feels right now about her mental health, that she'll walk away from the game that she loves. She'll walk away from all that money because she's like, hey, I'm not in the right place for this right now. Mm-hmm. That's what I want people to understand. She loves this game. She's very well compensated. So for her to walk away, she has to really be feeling something. And I think people need to be more supportive of that.
I think so as well. And in her long Instagram post, she mentioned that she's been suffering with depression since she won at the 2018 US Open. And that was the US Open where she was playing her idol, Serena Williams. And that match did not end well because there was controversy with the official and saying that Serena Williams was getting coaching. Serena denied it, and it was this huge blow up. And, Naomi Osaka ended up winning that match. But due to all the controversy, she never really got to have her true moment, beating her idol in a Grand Slam championship.
And I know you guys were here rooting, and I was rooting too, but let's make this the best moment we can, and we'll get through it. But let's give everyone the credit where credit's due, and let's not boo anymore. We're gonna get through this, and let's be positive. So congratulations, Naomi. No more booing.
So she said that she's been suffering with depression because of that. And since that, event, and it can be hard for these athletes. If anybody has heard Naomi Osaka speak, she's very shy. She's very reserved. She's not, this outgoing, bubbly person. So somebody that's an introvert having to talk to the press can be hard. I do think that these athletes, they're skilled. They play a sport. They sign up to play a game, but they don't necessarily sign up to deal with the press. She's not a motivational speaker. She's not some, you know what I'm trying to say? She's not a motivational speaker. Like, if it's hard for her to do that, I think she should have the option to not do that. And I think players should as well. But then if other players do that, it'll kind of make the press obsolete, because it's like, you guys are useless. You guys are annoying. I don't need to deal with this. A lot of these players are rich and can afford to take $15,000 fines. So then, that opens up a Pandora's box. So I'm conflicted. I support players because they make the game. Without Naomi Osaka's contributions to tennis, nobody would be talking about it the way they do now. And it's kind of hypocritical, because I know the US Open, after the whole George Floyd thing, they had, areas of the stadium in New York decorated with Black Lives Matter art and all this. So Black Lives Matter is just not about life and death. It's also about when we're alive as well. Black Lives Matter includes our mental health. Black mental health matters. Mental health in general matters. So don't only care about us when our lives are in danger. Care about us when we're alive and we're going through stuff mentally, because that's all a part of health as well. So I know that was the US Open, and the French Open didn't have all these Black Lives Matter stuff, but at the same time, if you value the health and the physical health of these players, value their mental health as well.
That's a word. I'm ready to move on. You put a nice bow on it.
So the last thing that we'll talk about before we get into our main topic, Miss Monique, our fave, came through with the word. I don't know what compelled her to say this. I guess Monique was at an airport and she saw Black women wearing bonnets and slippers and pajamas to the airport, and she felt some type of way because she, in her long statement, was talking about how as Black people we should carry ourselves well, and carrying ourselves, with wearing, do-rags and, house slippers and pajamas and bonnets to a public space, she said is not the best representation of us. And she definitely felt some type of way because she went on a whole 5-minute rant. I'll include a clip.
I've been seeing it, not just at the airport. I've been seeing it at the store, at the mall. I've been seeing sisters showing up with these bonnets and headscarves and their slippers. And the question that I'm having to you, my sweet babies, when did we lose pride in representing ourselves? When did we step away of let me make sure I'm presentable when I leave my home? Let me make sure I'm representing the family I created so that if I'm out in the street, I look like I have pride in myself. And I'm not saying no full face of makeup. I'm not saying no full front lace frontal. I'm not saying none of that. All I'm saying is, could you please comb your hair?
And she was not feeling it. She said that if we're going to call ourselves kings and queens, we should look like it too, because how we present ourselves to the world in a way affects how people may treat us. So Dante, what did you think about what she said? Do you agree with her stance? Because it's very controversial.
I'm conflicted by her stance. On one hand, after watching the video, I was like, yeah, if you dress like you don't care, that's how people will perceive you. But on the other hand, the Bible says, come as you are. This, to me, at times sounded like the whole pull up your pants argument. If you're a book, the outside and how you're dressing is your cover, and you let people come to whatever determination that they want to without opening that book, right? But when it comes to flying, because it's specific to the airport, where she said she was at the airport, right? Mm-hmm. I truly believe in comfort over style. Who wants to fly in a suit? I had to do that before. That shit sucks. So I mean, listen, I believe in comfort over style at the airport. But for me personally, I'm never going outside. Even when I have braids or when I'm trying to, when my hair's short and I have waves, I'm never going outside in my do-rag. I'm not going out in public in my do-rag. I'm never going out in pajamas. That's just not me. That's not how I was raised, man. Like, that's just my thing. I ain't judging somebody else for doing it. You do whatever you want to do. You have your own volition and your own prerogative, but people ain't going to take you seriously too much if you come outside in pajamas and have, a bonnet on your head. I know that for a fact. That's just how people see you. What are your thoughts?
I'm conflicted as well, and I respect Monique for feeling the need to come out and say that Black people should represent themselves in the way that they want to be seen, because it's true that the way you present yourself to the world is how you want to be seen. If you come out of your house looking dirty, people are going to think that you're dirty. You might be a clean person, but that's not what you're showing us. So it's weird to think that, oh, this person is clean, but they don't look clean. So that's not the conclusion I'm going to come to. If you want to, wear pajamas out, people might think that you're lazy. If you don't want people to think that you're lazy, dress appropriately. My issue was when Monique said presentable. This idea of being presentable, because I'm like, presentable to who? Because I think that individually, everybody that gets up out of their house and presents themselves is representing themselves. So who exactly are we trying to be presentable to? Because in the Black community, there's this idea of wanting to look a certain way in front of white people. I'm sorry to say it, but it's very true. I've even heard people saying, oh, don't do that. Don't act like that. White people will think this. White people will think that. There's a lot of Black people that are concerned with how white people will perceive them. And this is unique to our community, or maybe it's not. And there's other people that, experience the same thing where they want to be looked at a certain way by white people. And I don't think that you should judge everything based on the eyes and the lens of white people. I think it's very dangerous, and I think it affects our mindset. Everybody represents themselves. If I go out of the house looking dirty, it's not an indictment on Black people, it's an indictment on myself. So I'm questioning her and who she's talking about when she's saying look presentable. And for me, it's the airport. Monique said she was at the airport and she saw people with bonnets and pajamas. And for me, like Dante said, it's all about comfort. This is not a job interview. This is not a party. This is to catch a flight to go from point A to point B. So the most important thing for me, honestly, is comfort. If you're more comfortable in a sweater and your pajamas and your bonnet, so be it. If you're more comfortable in the suit, so be it. I think we should leave people alone. And we have to get out of this mindset of, oh, people will perceive us a certain way if we look a certain way. They're not representing the Black community. They're representing themselves. I've never seen white people be like, oh, this trailer tractor person with a hillbilly pregnant belly in the airport looking a fool. And they're like, oh, this is making white people look bad. I've never heard that said. But with black people, it's always like, oh my God, you look at how people are going to look at us. Oh, they do not represent our race. They just don't. Black people are not a monolith. We do not think the same. We do not dress the same. We do not speak the same. We're different. White people are different. So we should accept those differences, stop judging people, and let people come as they are.
Exactly. Come as you are. Look, we are not the judges of this thing. I keep saying it on this podcast. We are just witnesses. We're not even the jury, man. We don't decide. It's not up to us. So, if that's your steez, that's your get down, you want to go out in public with your SpongeBob pajamas on, do your thing. Just know that people are going to see you a certain way. That's all. Mm-hmm. You know what you're signing up for. That's my biggest thing with people is like, we have free will. You know what you're signing up for when you do certain things. And if you're okay with that, then fine. Be yourself. Do you. Do whatever you want. Just know that you can't control how people are going to react to you.
Right.
I mean, you kind of can if you didn't come. Whatever. It's too much. It's too much. Let's just like that. Wear whatever the fuck you want to wear. And if you get judged for it, so be it. Mm-hmm. But it's up to you to determine if those people's opinions matter to you or not.
Right. I mean, you
That's
might have
the important part.
You might have people like Monique judging you, and you have a lot of people who honestly don't care. It does not affect me when people dress a certain way. It really doesn't. If people want to wear a do-rag and wear house slippers and pajamas, so be it. It doesn't affect me. They do not represent me. They represent themselves. So I'm not concerned. My biggest lesson for this is that black people should get out of the idea of wanting to be looked at a certain way by a certain audience. How somebody looks does not affect you and does not affect our community. That's all I have to say.
Nope, it shouldn't at least.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't at least, which is true. But yeah, that's enough about that. What do you guys think about what Monique said? Does that tie into respectability politics? Does she have a point? Do you agree with her? What do you think? I'd love to know. So that's the last story before we get into our main topic. We had this planned for a week, and now the time is here to discuss it. Dante, what are we talking about this week?
We are talking about, well, it's kind of a loaded topic, but we are talking about Shaun King, Black authenticity and passing this week. So we've all seen things on the internet about Shaun King, who is Justin, is it fair to call him a civil rights activist or an activist? I guess
an activist.
Okay, so he is an activist who has a very large following online. He's worked a lot with victims and families that have had things happen to them at the hands of the police. There's been questions since day one on if this guy is truly an African American, if he's black, because he looks like a white man in a lot of people's eyes. So we kind of wanted to talk about this because recently, last week when we were coming up with this topic, like Justin said, he had posted on Instagram a picture of him and his brother, and people were starting to attack him like, yo, look at his brother. This guy's clearly a white man. And he said, well, we have different dads. I didn't have a relationship with my dad. It's kind of disgusting that people are even talking about my race and ethnicity like that. So Justin, I kind of want to get your thoughts on, I guess, Shaun King, and then we can get into passing and racial authenticity.
I really don't have a lot when it comes to Shaun King. All I know is that he's an activist. He likes to post a lot when it comes to injustice and situations that affect black people. People find him, useful as an informational resource on, things dealing with civil rights and injustice. So a lot of people, find his work useful. I appreciate the work that he does because he does a lot to, help the black community. People obviously don't like him. He's very, unpopular with a lot of people within the black community because they feel like he's in a way exploiting black trauma for profit. I don't have his bank statement. I don't know if he is, but I think that somebody can make an argument for that, and plenty of people have. It's funny that we bring him up because this week I saw that Patrisse Cullors, she's one of the, I think, founding members of Black Lives Matter. She's stepping down from her role. And if you guys remember, I think a couple weeks ago, Dante and I talked about how she purchased multi-million-dollar homes, and people were calling her out and saying, oh, I thought you were a Marxist. I thought you were against, the rich hoarding all this stuff. And yet you're buying million-dollar houses. Make it make sense. And now a couple weeks later, she's now resigning from Black Lives Matter. Interesting. And honestly, I think that people should open up the magnifying glass because I've been saying it from day one. Black Lives Matter raised so much money last summer. where is that money going? Where's the transparency? Because it seems like from the outside looking in that a lot of people are lining their pockets on the pain of other people. I don't know. It's interesting, but as it pertains to Sean, go ahead.
Well, I want to say that, you brought up an interesting point there, and I don't care what color you are. If you are profiting off the pain of people, and specifically in this case of black people, because that's the organization that was taking this money, then that's wrong. I don't give a fuck if Sean King is black, white, purple. If you are profiting off the pain and taking advantage of people's kindness, that's wrong.
No, it is wrong. It is wrong. It's wrong to exploit anybody, to be honest. Exploitation is horrible. Look at the history of this country. Nobody likes being exploited. I think that, I don't know, I feel like Sean King's race isn't important, because if you're fighting for black people or anybody in general, are we right to assume that it shouldn't matter what your race is? Why are people so concerned with finding out if he's black or if he's not? Because I don't know about him. Is he claiming that he's black?
I did not see this going this way. Yeah, so he is, he says that, he's an African-American man. He's lived his life as an African-American man. Just so I'm clear, right? I don't ever want to twist your words on here. You're saying that, we shouldn't be splitting hairs, right? If somebody's doing something for the benefit of a good cause, and specific to this cause is black people, it doesn't matter if this man is white or black. In the case of Sean King.
Right. If you're helping us bottom line and you're not exploiting us or making profit off of Black Lives Matter or anything, if you're just simply there helping black people, I see no problem with that.
Okay. So the caveat there is what can be perceived as exploitative. Gotcha. Because that's going to come in handy when we get into our next topic after this about what is exploitation and, if that, is it being harmful? Mm-hmm. But with Sean King, I agree with you. I don't care what color the man is. Like, from what I see, what I've seen of him, he's out there doing good work and he's spreading good information to people. Right. At the end of the day, it's kind of hard to argue that he's not spreading really solid information to people. So that's what really matters to me when it comes to Sean King. I don't care what color he is. And how you mentioned being being exploitative. It's not, like Rachel Dolezal, right? Where this was a white woman that lived her life as a black woman. She got to be the head of the NAACP chapter in Spokane, Washington. Nobody decided to do any digging in the world we live in now. Nobody decided to go look at some yearbooks. That it's hard for me to believe that it took as long as it did for her to get exposed. Is the right word, exposed as living a lie.
Right. Because what she did is lying. You're pretending to be somebody else in order to gain access and benefits to things that you should not have access to. It's just not right. It's exploitative because you should be who you are. Pretending to be somebody that you're not is fake. It's fraud. It's phony. It's not good. Okay? People should live in honesty. And she did not do that. And I'm so glad that she got exposed because that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You should not change your identity in order to gain benefits and access to things that you would not normally have access to.
I guess only time will tell with Sean King, but I think it's good that we mentioned it on this episode about Sean King and the work that he's doing. And, if it matters, does it matter to you guys, the listeners, if he's living his life as a black man, but he's really white, if the work that he's doing is good and he's not, profiting and laundering money based on this fact? What do you think about it?
If I was really black, but I look white, if I know who I am, that's all that matters. I don't have to address every situation where somebody is questioning my identity. If I know who my mom and my dad are, if I know, who I am, I don't know why he continues to address whether or not he's black or not. Just let it be and continue to do good work. I just don't get it. Because if I was truly black, I would not be addressing anyone. Because who are you to question who I am, especially when I told you who I am? And maybe it's situations like Rachel Dolezal that's making people dig into him and find out, are you really black?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. I don't even have anything like witty or worthwhile to add on to it. I agree with everything you just said there. That was an excellent point.
Mm-hmm. So with that, we have Ellen's show. You guys know that Ellen's show after 2022. That's one of
Justin's faves is Ellen.
I've been on game about Ellen. I exposed her for the hypocrisy with her relationship with George W. Bush. I always, gave, certain people side eye because I'm like, nobody can be that nice. And that's a unfair burden to place on anybody because we're human. At the same time, if there's abuse going on, you should call it out and not let it fester. But nevertheless, Ellen's show is going to be ending after 2022. People have already brought up people that they'd like to see replace her. So some people were saying that they'd like to see Tiffany Haddish, take on the seat that Ellen is leaving and, be the new host of the Ellen show, or the new version of Ellen's show, I guess, with the new host. And on Twitter, people were not having it because there's a lot of black people, or people in general, that do not like Tiffany Haddish. If anybody doesn't know who she is a comedian, and a lot of people call her ghetto. A lot of people say that she makes black people look bad. Famously, she attended the Oscars a couple years ago, and in her purse, she had fried chicken in there.
When I'm hungry, I turn into an evil bitch. So I said to myself, this year, I'm gonna make sure I'm not hungry. And if I see somebody with a little attitude, maybe I hand them a piece of chicken.
So what, hang on, you took fried chicken?
So I put some fried chicken in my bag. Besides, also the thing is camp. I mean, wouldn't you bring some chicken when you go camping? I'm just saying. Sure. So, I don't know how y'all camp, but that's how I camp. So I brought some chicken in my bag, in a plastic, I put it in a plastic sandwich bag, poked some holes in it so it could breathe. Sure.
And then she saw Meryl Streep on the red carpet and ran up on Meryl Streep. And Meryl Streep clearly did not know who this was. She's like, who is this, person in front of me? I think offering me a piece of fried chicken. And I was just cringing. And this goes with the idea of wanting to be seen a certain way in front of white people. A lot of black people were embarrassed because they thought Tiffany Haddish was poor representation of black women and black people. So how dare she, embarrass us in that way? Because that's how some people think. So a lot of people, they don't like Tiffany Haddish, and they feel like if she was given, Ellen's show, that she would create, black stereotypes or whatever and make black people a ghetto or uneducated or whatever. What do you think about that?
The thing I want to address what you just said is how you said, we saw that happen, right? And a lot of people, black people, felt bad about that. Like, oh man, you're making us look this way because of, a certain mindset that's been put into us. But I don't think it's a black problem. I think it's that people who had no idea who this woman was saw this black lady behaving very cringily and fitting in the stereotypes. And they're like, oh, yeah, black people do like chicken. I don't think it's isolated to black people feeling that way. I don't think they feel that way for no reason. I think it's because sometimes we do get bunched in as a monolith, right? One person does something and we're all like, oh my God. I remember... And this happens to white people too. I remember when I was younger and the DC sniper was going around, and black people and even the comedians, before they caught this person, were making jokes like, well, that would never be a black person because we don't do stuff like that. Robbing bank serial killers, leave that up to the white people. That's what they do. And they found out this person was black and they're like, oh shit. Like, I guess we had to have one, right? Like, but I don't know. So I think that it's not specifically a black people problem. I think that people view us as a group, but one person can sway opinions on that one way or another, positive or negative. And I think it's like that for a lot of races. It's about, your personal interactions with these people. But to the topic of replacing Ellen, what you said is interesting. Nobody can be that nice. That's funny because I believe in that too. You could be so nice that it raises suspicions, or it's like you were trying to like overcompensate for something here. Like, you're trying too hard here to let us know that you're a saint. And if Tiffany Haddish was the person to replace her, I feel about her the way I feel about Kevin Hart. I don't think you're the funniest person in the world. I just respect the hell out of your work ethic. That's what I can say. I don't think that you're super funny. I don't watch Kevin Hart specials anymore. I don't watch Tiffany Haddish specials. I saw her in this Netflix movie with Eric Andre like last month. I don't get the buzz or the hype about her. I'm happy for her success. Would never put anybody down that's having success. But I think that they could find a more compelling and interesting person to follow up Ellen as the host. And then, you mentioned about being performative. Would those stereotypes be hurtful to black people by having her, if she's, behaving the way she did on the red carpet on this show every day? Yes, it would be. But so here's the argument in the crux of what this conversation kind of is. Is it good for black people because, hey, there's a black person in this prime slot that Ellen had following up Ellen, even if it's not the best representation of us? Is it still a win? That's the question I have for you.
Well, Tiffany Haddish actually is a unique case because even though people say that Tiffany Haddish acts stereotypical and engages in, tropes about black people, I really do think that that's how she really is. I think I've seen enough interviews, I've seen enough stand up to know that I think that that's really how she is. And some people don't believe that that's how she is. Some people think that she puts on a little bit more in order to engage with a certain audience. But I really do think that that's her. So when it comes to her hosting Ellen, I think that she would be being herself. I don't think that she would be doing stereotypical stuff just to be controversial or just to be stereotypical on purpose. I think that she would be representing herself accurately because that's truly how she is. Now, if it was somebody that is not like that, then I can see how that would be, harmful for somebody to be in a seat like that. And, with representation comes, a lot of stereotyping because that's all people see. That's why I think that Oprah being on television for as long as she was good for a lot of people because people might not have been familiar with black people. Oprah was relatable to a lot of women and a lot of people in general of all races. And I think that for the most part, she portrayed herself honestly. And I think that she's very classy and represented herself well. I think that there's nothing wrong with representation as long as you're being true to who you are. Now, if you're engaging in tropes and stereotypes, I have a problem with that. But if that's who you are, so be it. Is it a win? Yeah, because there's never been a black person in that position. So if Tiffany Haddish was, the person that's chosen, it would be a win.
So, okay, so if it's being authentic to who you are as a person, then you're for it. But if this was Medea hosting the Ellen show, that's where you draw the line.
Well, Medea is a character.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, it's a character, it's a black person. Is it a win? Even though this is like a very harmful trope.
Well, I don't know if that's like the best example because Medea is a character. It's not a real person. I understand what you're trying to say, but if you gave me a better example, I'd be better able to answer your question, but I can't get past the fact that Medea is a fictional character. So a character is not real. So I can't interpret that as a real representation of how black people are.
Okay. Charlemagne the God.
I don't really have a problem with that. Obviously, I don't know. He's not my favorite person, but cool. He's the host. Cool. He hosts a popular radio show already. So, it is what it is.
Okay. I don't have any more like controversial black people that could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't spitball any more people to you out of it.
Because Tyler Perry, speaking of him, a lot of people feel like the films that he portrays are harmful to the black community because he has tropes that deal with negative stereotyping. Black men ain't this. Black woman can't find a man.
But a growing number of critics in the black community take issue with Perry's work, including director Spike Lee.
Each artist should be allowed to pursue the artistic endeavor. But I still think a lot of stuff that's on today is coonery buffoonery. And I know it's making a lot of money, breaking records, but we could do better.
All these kind of tropes, and a lot of people don't like it, but at the same time, there's an audience for it. People keep returning to see Tyler Perry stuff. So if it was so bad, if the representation was so harmful, why do people continue to watch it? Surely black people will reject it if it's so bad.
Because Tyler Perry got his start in the church, and religion was a big part of what the plays and the movies that he made. So he has those roots entangled and grown into the black church. And I think that's why people go back to it and keep coming back to Tyler Perry's work, regardless if it's what some would view as harmful or stereotypical or a trope. I think that's why Tyler Perry has a black church behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they keep going back.
Tyler Perry is definitely serving an audience that is underserved by Hollywood. Especially black Southern women do not see themselves at all in Hollywood fare. So when he's serving them movies where they appear to be in situations that are naturalistic and recognizable to them and definitely have that Christian message, I absolutely understand why my grandmother, my mother, and my aunts love this stuff, and my family down south, why they love this stuff.
Do you think that Tyler Perry and his success is a win for black people?
Is he a billionaire? Am I correct on that?
I think that's what they say he is.
Yeah. I mean, he has his own land, his own studios. he created his own table. He didn't wait to get a seat at somebody else's table. So in that sense, then yeah, that's a win. I mean, maybe he didn't go about it the way that a lot of people would have liked him to, but he still did it, and that could inspire somebody else to do the same exact thing another day. So I would say, from what I know of Tyler Perry, and like I said, we don't ever know everything about someone. You know, yes, the tropes and the stereotypes are harmful, but with him, you know, I think one could argue that the good outweighs the bad.
If you look at the country, and we have 17% black unemployment and all these other things going on, Tyler Perry's in Atlanta creating jobs. He's doing something that nobody else in black Hollywood has been able to do. So when you talk about victimhood, look at black Hollywood. You have so many actors and actresses complaining that they can't find jobs.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler Perry is creating jobs, which I think is a beautiful thing.
So, Teray, why do you think he's so successful?
Just one thing I want to point out, that drug dealers also create jobs, but we're not giving them credit for creating jobs. Just creating jobs is not enough.
But he's not a drug
creating
dealer, though. Come on.
Bad jobs.
And I think maybe some people can argue that the bad outweighs the good, because we always talk about representation and how when people see stuff on TV, people that have never interacted with black people will think that that's how black people are. And a lot of people argue that Tyler Perry's stuff is harmful to the black community because of the stereotyping and how a lot of it doesn't look good for us. So that's why I think it's interesting what you said, because he got to where he is on the backs of stereotyping and bad representation for black people. And in turn, a lot of people who aren't black, that don't have any experience with black people, are seeing that and in a way are swayed to think that black people behave that way and are that way. So you think that it's a win regardless of how harmful that was to the black community?
No, I just said that you can make an argument, you know, for it being a win, and you just made an argument for it not being a win. I think.
No, you said that it was a win, though.
So I said that Tyler Perry, the good outweighs the bad, in my opinion.
Right. I remember asking.
Yeah, it's a win. You know, he has created and built equity in this community. He has, like I said, he has his own studios. He's hiring people that look like him. Like I said, not everything's black and white. Not everything's perfect, right? I don't agree with the tropes. I don't watch this stuff. I don't find it entertaining. And I think it can be harmful, like you said, to people who have never had or have had very limited or very small interactions with black people. If they think, you know, they turn on BET and see a Tyler Perry movie, they think, oh, well, this must be how all black people act. I mean, one, that's just ignorant and you're smooth-brained. But two, that's unfortunate that that's the conclusions that they draw.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not, like I said, it's not a black and white thing. Some things live in the gray area. It's just my personal opinion. I think that he's doing so much good, and by building, you know, not waiting for a seat at somebody else's table, building his own table and building equity in this community for other movie makers and writers and creatives. I think that that's very important. Like you said, representation matters.
Because the point of this episode is to show, you know, whether or not somebody can cause harm even though they're black. What does that mean? Are we a monolith? Are we not? What does it mean to be authentic to yourself, and I guess authentic to the community that you're representing? Because regardless of how we all think, a lot of people see us as representations of our race. And I'll never forget in college, you know, whenever I was in my race courses, whenever anything regarding black people got brought up, I was like one of maybe two people in a certain class, and all the eyeballs would go to me as the one representative for black people. Is that fair? No. Is that how some people see it? Of course, but there's nothing I can do. I represent myself. I don't represent anybody else, and that is true for everybody. So we should stop looking at everything as a collective and individualize certain things, especially when it comes to, you know, identity and who you are, because we're all different.
They had Justin in there as the representative for the black delegation, like it was a Chappelle Show skit.
Yes, it's true. But it is what it is. You guys know how I represent this podcast well, and I represent myself well. At least I try to, but that's always the hope. So I hope you guys, you know, learned something from this episode. I thought it was interesting to talk about, just so we have it on the table and just so people can understand a little bit about how the black community views itself in the eyes of other people. Look forward and not look back, and, you know, stop judging, I guess. Everybody's different. If you want to wear a bonnet, wear a bonnet. If you want to wear pajamas, wear pajamas. Do you, and don't worry about what other people think. But at the same time, with what Monique said, I will say that it's good that somebody feel it in their heart to want better for black people in general. And I think that it starts with how you represent yourself. So, you know, let's think about that too.
Yeah, I mean, it could be good intentions, just you could be off the mark, and that happens sometimes. She was speaking from her heart of what, an issue she felt she could speak on and help people improve if there needed to be improvement in that area, right? Their message could be coming from the right place, but it could just be the wrong message.
I agree. Obviously, I don't agree with Monique on everything, but I really do like Monique. And if I'm ever in the position to write a role for her or something, I will do it because I think that she's very talented. And one day, actually for some secret project that I'm working on, I will discuss it. But one day I'm going to talk about, martyrs in pop culture, whether that be Colin Kaepernick or Monique, and how people ridiculed them whenever they were making their statement. But when we look towards the future, did they have a point? Are we going to look at Colin Kaepernick and say, hey, the NFL did him dirty. Now he represents the fight for civil rights off the field. Like, how are we going to look at these people in the future, even though they might have been maligned in the present? Very interesting stuff to explore.
No, I think that's a very interesting topic to explore, exploring martyrdom. That's interesting. And we can get into that on future episodes.
Very true. Very true. So much to explore on this show. You never know what you're going to get week in and week out, but we love doing it. But I hope you guys like this episode. It's always something new, different takes, different opinions. I appreciate you. And we have not mentioned the secret fans yet. I always try and mention them at least once per episode. If you're new to the show, a secret fan is somebody that introduces themselves. So for example, they'll be like, hi, my name is Jessica. And then they just leave it at that. But what they should say is, hi, I'm Jessica. Have you heard of this podcast? Have you? I really love it. It's really great. You should listen to it. That's an example of somebody who's not a secret fan, somebody who's not afraid to share the show, tell somebody about the show, share it on your story. I will keep saying, if you have not shared the show on your Instagram story, you are a secret fan. If you listen in secret and never tell any of your friends about it, you are a secret fan. What are you hiding the show for? Let us grow, expand our reach. Come on. Don't be a secret fan, because also another definition for secret fans are people that might dislike me or Dante in real life, but they listen to the show in the hopes that we'll talk about them on an episode. We probably never will. Continue to listen, and I hope you enjoy the show.
I think that's the best way to end this episode, to be honest with you. So, thank you guys for listening. Please write in an anonymous question for us to answer on a future episode. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends and tell their friends about it. Leave us a review. We haven't gotten a new review in a while. So leave us a review. But as always, thanks for listening. For Justin, I'm Dante. We're polar opposites. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.